Start over.
Yes. All right.
Starting now.
Okay. Last month I went to a biological farming workshop in New South Wales. It was funded by the federal government and it was hosted by Soil Care Inc., which is a community-run group promoting soil health in New South Wales, in northern New South Wales. The presenter was Gary Zimmer and his daughter Leilani Zimmer. And we had also presented from the Northern Rivers TAFE, Wollongbar TAFE, on their soil health card, which they've developed there to try and promote soil health, to get people to look at their soils and see what they can do to improve them. As well as that, we had a visit to EAL, which is the Environmental Analysis Lab in Lismore. That was a very interesting talk there. We went right through the lab and the fellow talked about how do you interpret your analysis. Now, Gary Zimmer, biological farming, the idea came, he was a dairy farmer, and as well as that he used to go and lecture at school, and one of his students, as one of their research topics, put a whole pile of extra calcium and sulphur on a hay crop. And when they took the hay crop off, they discovered that the food nutrition in that hay crop was far exceeded any other hay that they'd taken off. So he started to think, well, why? Because he was interested in feeding his cows and he needed high quality food. What had happened to that hay crop? So he bought a property then, because he had originally had a dairy and then he'd sold that, but he decided he'd better go and start trying out these processes. And he experimented and he came up with the idea that the soil and the rumen of a cow do the same thing. The rumen of the cow, you put your nutrients in, the microbes create the food for the cow, and the soil's the same. You put your nutrients in, the microbes in the soil feed the plants. So he said, well, conventional farming talks about NPK and then you lime the soil to control your pH. And you ignore all the other factors and you get a crop, but the food value in the crop is not there. And I heard one of the people from the WAGS group, the Holistic Grazing Group, talking about his goats this year. When he put them into the pasture, they ate the pasture and then turned out to say, well, you know, where's the food? Because there was no value in the food for them. And so Gary Zimmer developed a method of farming which tries to address the problems of mineralising the soil, improving the soil quality, the aggregation and aeration, and looking after biology in the soil. And he does that in 6 different, his steps are using cover crops, and he turns the cover crop in. So you've got to remember that he's farming where the ground's frozen over winter. So as soon as the ground thaws, he can start putting a crop in. He puts his cover crop in, and he applies minerals because he says the plants require 16 different minerals, and we concentrate on the famous 3, and you only use lime when we want to change the pH. But he said the plants use all these minerals, and we should be addressing all of those minerals when we're trying to get our crop to grow. And so he puts his cover crop in, he turns that in when it's really green and lush. So his cover crops we'd love to have as a crop. So his cover crop's this high, he might put his animals through it first, turns that in, and then he sows straight into that, because what he's trying to do with that green cover crop is feed the bacteria. And the bacteria bodies will break down and supply the nitrogen for the next crop, because they're made of amino acids. So that way he can reduce his nitrogen inputs and keep growing a nice strong crop. So if he will then grow his crop, and when I'm talking about crop, his corn crop was about 8 foot high, and it was just absolutely amazing, the photographs. And then after he's collected his crop off, which is usually for animal forage, he will then put another crop on to cover over winter. So in that one season he's actually working the ground 3 times. He said, that was my thought when I went over there. I see everybody's stubble stick up in the air, and I think, well, how are we getting that organic matter into the ground? Because we're just leaving it sticking up in the air. It's doing nothing for the ground, and he answered my question. He turns it all in. He doesn't plough, he just rotivates. So he's just lightly working that into the soil so that he can not have erosion, build up his organic matter and feed his microbes for the next crop. Leilani is the scientist. Gary will come along and give you all the ideas of what he's proved on his property. Leilani wants to know why everything works, so she's the research person. She goes off and she finds out all the information as to why you needed more calcium. So it's things like the calcium is in all the leaf structures, all the pectin in all the leaf. So whatever calcium you put on the ground, the plant puts it into its leaf structure and it has to hold it there. It doesn't shift. So it's using it all the time. So if you must keep your calcium levels up really high. Sulfur is a really important one because it ties the peptides, the chains in the plant together. And if there's not enough sulfur, the peptides aren't continuous and they don't get tied together. And so the bugs can sense that. So that's when you get animal attack because you haven't got a complete chain, and that's why you need to keep your sulfur levels up. So all of these things combine, and mainly, so his idea is you test your soils, then you look after your organic matter in the soil so that your biology can feed your plant and you can reduce your inputs. And besides reducing your inputs, you're going to, by cover cropping, you're going to reduce your problems with weeds because you've got the competition there. And by making your plants strong, you're going to reduce your inputs to fight diseases. And this has been proven all around the world.
Thank you very much, Bev.
Thank you.